Hello, my name is Lucas. This is Bit of Lit, and I'm here to talk about some nonfiction that I've been reading. Quite a lot of it. Some might even say far, far too much of it. At least in such a confined space of time. I have been reading all of Kurt Vonnegut's nonfiction, uh, which includes, I'm looking at my iPad right now, where I've kept a list of all the things I've read, and it's Player Piano, which I will still make that video about. It's just going to take a few weeks. Nothing is Lost, Save Honor. A Man Without a Country, which was his last book published during his lifetime. Palm Sunday, Fate's Worse Than Death. Those two are autobiographical things that came out. And then Wampeter's, Foma, and Grand Falloons, I think. I only wrote part of the name. I've been reading these to get a better insight as to who Vonnegut was and more about his personal life. And I've learned quite a lot, and I've written down some of that. And I've also been looking for things that show what he was thinking or what considerations he had while writing his novels. And yeah, of course, the big one, he talks about Dresden in all of those. And, you know, he does make a point to say that what happened at Dresden, because he had no connection to the people there, he was just a prisoner of war, sort of has no impact on who he is as a person or as an artist. Had an impact on Slaughterhouse-Five, when he was able to finally write about the time period. He talks about what was the impetus for that and what led him to write sort of, as he called it, the truth there. And I've learned about who he had in mind for Cat's Cradle, and what this guy, Langmuir, was experimenting on. And also, apparently, that guy was the first private industry scientist to win a Nobel Prize. I've learned that he had a son that he named Mark after Mark Twain, and he really talks about Mark Twain a lot. It becomes apparent, very, very obvious. The older he gets, the more he's writing. His cynicism is always there, but it gets much deeper and darker throughout his life. You can definitely see this in A Man Without a Country. It is a very thoroughly unpleasant thing to read because it's the ramblings of a very bitter, angry person, much like Mark Twain became in his later years. A Man Without a Country is his probably, as well as Fate's Worse Than Death, I would say, his most political books of nonfiction. A Man Without a Country really hammers in his feelings on the Bush administration, Bush Jr. And, you know, nothing he says is wrong or anything. It was very strange to read people's thoughts, a person's thoughts on the Bush administration as it was happening. Haven't done that in a long time, you know. And it was kind of bizarre to read, given the current political climate in America. Anyway, in, I believe it's Palm Sunday, yes, there is this really long, really good essay, I would say, about the origins of his family, going back to his great-grandparents. He is thoroughly German, and you get a lot about him. You get to learn about everyone in his family, what they were, architects, what happened to his family. They were quite well off until the Great Depression, and he was dissuaded from becoming an architect by his in Indianapolis, where he was born, by his father, who was worried that there would be no work for him because his father was out of work, basically. And also because of World War I, Vonnegut was born in 1922, so shortly after World War I. He never really grew up with very much in the way of German cultural heritage because of a great stigma and shame related to that in America. Yeah, and this, I think, when he's talking about his family, when he's writing about his family, or even when he's writing about what he was thinking about during, for a book, I think is when he's at his strongest, when he's talking about politics in some way. Okay, yeah, he's got some really sharp criticisms against Republicans, and he's not really wrong. This is perfectly fine. His humor in all of these, it has never done anything for me. But there were a few times where he did get a laugh out of me, very, very rarely. Out of the, I don't know, couple hundred, almost 1,000 pages that I read, I laughed maybe 3 times. I think probably the best one is Fate's Worse Than Death. This one is fairly political, although Palm Sunday has the really great essay on his family and these kind of things. So that's pretty cool. When he's giving his opinion on other stuff, though, or when he's writing about other books, it doesn't do much for me at all. Even in the parts that I do enjoy, which are few and far between, I will admit, I didn't really enjoy reading these except for sparingly. Even in the parts that I do enjoy, his humor does not work for me. And I just get the sense that he really thinks he's quite funny. And I guess, he does talk about why he turned to humor and why he turns to humor. He makes a really big point in all of the books about how it's just better to laugh at, to handle these kind of things. But much like Mark Twain, who also satirized everything, he was beginning to, especially in these later ones, lose his ability to do that. But yeah, when he's talking about other stuff, I have no interest in what he has to say at all. I just don't find him interesting. I find Kurt Vonnegut to be largely a boring person who is not that curious to me. Although he did do some pretty interesting sort of things. I didn't know that he went to Nigeria or Biafra. He was there. He wrote a really long expose on his time near the end of the Biafran War, civil war with Nigeria, which Biafra lost. And of course he also went to Mozambique, I believe, and some of these other things. I don't know. I have this whole series planned on reading all of Kurt Vonnegut's books, and I've read Player Piano, which was okay, and I'm just looking down. I've read all his nonfiction now. I've got an idea. I've got to read a biography on him so that I can fill in more details, and then that video will be really fancy, I hope. And then I'm just looking down. I'm interested in reading the biography, but reading his other novels, we're going to see. The series is meant to be an exploration of an author I don't particularly care for, so I'm excited for it. I'm glad to have gotten the nonfiction out of the way. I've learned quite a bit. I've got a whole bunch of notes from it. Some of them I didn't even mention. Oops, sorry about that. You know, what he has to say about Hocus Pocus and things about childhood's end and just other parts of his life, other things. Not that interested in his thoughts. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. It could just be his attitude toward everything that drives me insane. It makes me not interested in anything he has to say. But that's that. I have read them all. I personally would not recommend them to anyone unless you really enjoy Kurt Vonnegut and you want to know more about the guy. The one I would definitely say, like, just don't read that is A Man Without a Country. That one is genuinely unpleasant to read. Palm Sunday, not too bad, I would say. Fate's Worse Than Death, also not too bad. Nothing is Lost, Save Honor is actually 2 essays that you can find in Fate's Worse Than Death, so there's no need to get an individual copy if you're interested. And Wampeter's whatever. No. It's not bad. It just was a big nothing to me. But I would definitely stay away from A Man Without a Country. Anyway, thank you. Goodbye.